talking about 10 minutes with Zepto, Blinkit, Instamart. FMCG sector has gone for a toss. What your insights and strategies have been to capture this market and this trend?
Imagine I'm a shopkeeper and I need something like an Amul charge and I get it in 10 minutes from a wholesale, right? This is where the bulk of rural survives. So imagine, the van markets which these companies operate in and still leverage in, what if they start ordering, and they're going to order very soon because India is almost going to, in 2 years, we're going to touch 900 million mobile phone.
All these giant companies have been latest, seen acquiring new age brands, like HUL acquiring Minimalist, or Reliance acquiring Velvet for that be. So how do you see, acquisitions playing a key role in terms of FMCG expansion or growth?
Time is a luxury. So most of the top companies, for their product development process, used to take 3 years. Now, if you imagine now, can you take 3 years to develop a product? You will be wiped out.
One marketing buzzword you would love to retire immediately?
I would say influencer marketing needs to be kicked off immediately.
Interesting. Meet Satyam Manohar, who has seen it all, from legacy brands to tech startups. Let's hear from his learnings from all the private equity investment that's been going around to the acquisitions happening in the FMCG space. Hi, Satyam. Oh, wait. I think your Red Bull was awaited to come from quick commerce. Has it been 10 minutes?
Hey, thanks, Devyanshi.
Hi.
Yeah, it's been like 6 minutes. I'm sure it's on the way. I'm sure you're making a Red Bull sugar free. But thanks for such a warm introduction. I think pleasure to be here and interact with you any point of time.
Same here. Talking about 10 minutes with Zepto, Blinkit, Instamart, already looking at how they can reduce the time of delivery. FMCG sector has gone for a toss. They have had to evolve their entire functioning, from supply chain to their SKU planning to even looking at their marketing trends.
Yeah.
So we would love to learn from you what your insights and strategies have been to capture this market and this trend.
Yeah, so I think there are several disruptions which have been hitting the FMCG industry of late. And trust me, I would say that they are all co-shaping the industry together. Quick com certainly is the big buzzword. And why not? Who would have imagined that you would have a plethora of brands being available, categories being available, and not just being available, but readily at the tip of a button, right? And trust me, what India is doing right now with respect to quick com, others are dreaming of, which is the Europes and the US of the world, right? So it's a big learning lesson for sure. If I deep dive into stuff, I think there are 3 key things happening in the quick com segment with respect to expansions which they are undergoing and which is further should be reflected in the next 18 to 24 months. Firstly is a geographical expansion. Yeah?
Interesting.
Second is category, and third is segment. Right? Let me try and give you a few examples. Let's say you live in NCR, let's say, and which brands do you order from quick com, if I have to ask?
Dabur to everyday essentials. It could even be from clothes to sometimes last minute grocery needs to
anything under the sky. Yeah, that's precisely. So the first phase of revolution has hit a set of almost 350 to 400 towns. I'm sure your metro or a city is one of it, which is the bulk of the consumption. And this is where, on a thumbs rule, most of your Zeptos, Swiggy, Instamarts or Blinkits are present right now. But if you look at the parent space, which is roughly close to 800 towns where a Zomato, the food delivery app, or a Swiggy, the food delivery app is available, that's the parent set which they'll be expanding. So the journey is going to be from these 350 to 400 towns to 800 towns. Which is going to be covered in the next 18 to 24 months. Now, you'll be surprised that, what towns are these. So, since I've worked in FMCG across, there are multiple examples. For example, it can be a Kadapa in Andhra Pradesh, or a Savai Madhopur in Rajasthan, or a Padrona in UP, or a Sigma in Chhattisgarh, or a Mandsaur in Madhya Pradesh. Right?
It's penetrating deeper and deeper.
It's going deeper and deeper. Now, why this matters really for FMCG? And I'm sure, a lot of sales leaders or the CEOs or the management, looking at this are going to include this in their AOP for the next year, or at least next 2 years. Number one fact that in India, 50% of FMCG sells in less than 10 rupee packs, right? So we are still, the companies like Britannia, or whether it be a Dabur or Unilever, the 1 rupee sachet, the 5 rupee pack, the 10 rupee pack, they're still creating the matching in the rural. which is largely still untouched by quick com. Right? A lot of ripple has happened in the first metros or top 400 towns, I should say. Now, this is where I think a sales leader should first and foremost make a very intricate planning. And let me deep dive a bit more. The first set of towns, the regular GT distribution, which was the moat of these companies, has been challenged for sure. Yeah. Now, the first set of towns, there are multiple venues by which the high turnover of the stockist could still be managed. But let's say if you have a smaller town, you have a further smaller turnover, which is taken by a quick com. It's going to be, not a very easy affair, right? So I think mapping these towns, understanding their supply chain mechanism, understanding the CFA versus a DC, which will help operate, or a stockist, which will help operate these places, is going to be the key. Second, I also anticipate a lot of these players coming with something like a quick com wholesale, right?
Interesting.
Right? Or let's say call it a quick com of a B2B, right? So imagine I'm a shopkeeper and I need something like an Amul charge, and I get it in 10 minutes from a wholesale, right? This is where the bulk of rural survives on.
Oh, that's called real disruption.
So imagine, the van markets which these companies operate in and still leverage in, what if they start ordering, and they're going to order very soon, because India is almost going to, in 2 years, we're going to touch 900 million mobile phones. That's going to be some number,
wow.
Right? So very soon. And WhatsApp is already in close to 500 million phones. Already. YouTube and Paytm have already crossed 450 million. So, you have enabled communication, you have enabled informal chat, you have enabled a payment ecosystem. So nothing is going to stop these players, and there are already players who are planning in this space. So that, in terms of geographical expansion, I would say is going to be the key. Fact will remain is that metro will see a very, very different consumer evolving, which let me cover in the second point, I should say. And the second point is that apart from geographical, there is a lot of category expansion which is happening, right? And let me put it back to you. Which new categories were you exposed to over the past, let's say, 1 year through quick com? Just think through this and perhaps you'll be able to answer better.
Electronics. After electronics, yeah. I think even the latest one, Anni.
Yeah.
That got
on. Yeah. So underneath, I think a great game by I think Mama Earth founders and Kusha Kapila, if I'm correct, and one more person. That's into the segment of let's say your clothing apparel, which is your innovations. So what is happening in quick com? FMCG is contributing only to 75 to 80% of the turnover, and right, there's the Bain study of latest, which is still the way the online shopping happens. 25% or 20 to 25% shopping is happening in non-FMCG categories. And before I give you example, let me give you my example. I was at my office and I ordered a protein from Whole Truth Foods, and then I realized that I don't have a shaker. I ordered a shaker from a company which was $1,400.
From quick commerce.
From quick com, it got delivered in 10 minutes. Right?
Shakers.
Yeah.
The dark stores can hold everything. Yeah,
they can everything. But I think this was a year back. So the game is further evolving very sharp. And this is turning out to be a boon for a couple of categories. Yeah. Now, which categories, So first and foremost, fresh foods, if you look at. Players like Amul, players like ID Foods, right? They're having a party right now, right? Freshness is restored. Consumers get the best of the product. And their already saliency is far higher as compared to something like a regular e-com like an Amazon or a Flipkart. So that's really, really doing well for them. Then, fresh foods are very adjacent categories, ice creams. And I was just reading yesterday an article by Inc42. There are close to 11, 12 great ice cream startups, right? Who would have caused a very sizable 0 to 100 journey. A couple of them, Eat Away, Go Zero, or Hoko, if you've heard of them. Yes. Right. So I think 10-minute ice cream delivery is a boon to the category for sure.
And for the consumer, it's a delight. Yeah.
Then there is a whole lot of stuff around gifting. Gold coins are being sold on Zomato, which people gift on Dhanteras. I gifted to a few people at that point of time. I mean, who would know that they would go ahead and disrupt a jewelers industry? Then there is also categories which have a stigma approach, right? Where you have a stigma attached to the category. There's a taboo, you do not go and buy. Something like a sexual hygiene and wellness. Yeah. Now, you being a female, you know that, you will get the typical stereotype look if you go to a chemist store to buy those kind of products. That is ending, right? That is ending. And also there's a usage-based consumption, right? So not only these products are getting highlighted, but also consumption with respect to usage. For example, if I'm setting up a Friday night party, I'm gonna order something like party poppers. I'm gonna order a popcorn company's latest binge watching popcorn. And by the way, 1441 BC already does 85% turnover only on quick commerce.
Only on quick commerce.
Yeah. Then I'm going to order maybe a cranberry juice from a leading juice company. So these are the SKUs. And by the way, Dabur's real 30% beverage sales actually happens through quick com right now. Yeah. So this is a kind of disruption. Then there are magic board, the chess boards, then gaming like Monopoly, as I've just said. Then couple of other emergency care needs. For example, your baby is crying, you need a diaper. Yeah, you get it at the tip of a button. There are other products from players like Kiko and whatnot, who have done really some great work with respect to innovation of the product, which is reaching the consumer. So this space around, category expansion will further see a lot of click, right? It's not only the adjacent categories, but also the best of the products will start reaching the consumer. I think the third biggest thing which is happening is segment expansion. Yeah. What do I mean by this is that a large set of upselling or cross-selling across new consumer segments has started happening. Yeah. For example, if you go to Blinkit, there is a section called Pan Corner. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then you can order magazines, you can order, let's say, pickleball stuff and whatnot. Then there is also something like brands like Perfora, yeah, which is an oral care brand. I think it appeared on Shark Tank at one point of time. And they have a product which is oral care product, which is ranging from 600 to 700 ASP rate, right?
And that's also selling.
That's not selling. That's actually trending. This is in so again, across South, across Blinkit, they will be in top 2 to 3 oral care preferred brands. So definitely consumers are getting impatient. There's a lot of neurological changes which are happening, which is inclusive of the fact they're ready to pay more. Problem solvers are winning. Yeah. So very interesting space. And I think companies will need to be extremely agile at this moment. If you are not, as Roger Federer puts it, if you're not going forward, you're going backward. Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow, thank you.
It delivered in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah. Thanks.
So with these quick commerce brands getting us, getting us Red Bulls in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Loyalty has gone for a toss.
Yeah.
Energy. There's so many energy drinks also available. When it comes to Perfora category, there's so many oral care brands also available.
Yeah.
When it comes to electronics, there's so many options available with just a click.
Yeah.
So hasn't customer loyalty been affected, ultimately impacting the FMCG brands?
Yeah. I think very relevant question. And this is one of the things why modes of FMCG distribution have changed. For example, if I take you, let's say 15 years back, you wanted to buy, let's say, a brand for, let's say, toothpaste, right? You were guided by a retailer at that point of time. Then came your open formats, here came your modern trade, where you could browse, navigate. But what if it was not stocked in that outlet? You could go to an e-com. Yeah? So people realized that distribution barriers for breaking in and consumer stickiness was not dependent on the channel which you're buying from. So it was a very flirt channel, I should say, right? People just wanted the product. Very similar explosion is happening in products. Yeah? But the key thing to, watch out, and I would say that I've been observing a lot of startup journeys in the consumer space, which has actually exploded. I think the true winners are the ones which are solving some real consumer problem. Yeah? If you have nailed a consumer insight and you have put in a problem and you have defined your micro niche, perhaps I think nobody can stop you, right? And again, you'll have to go the P&G or the L'Oreal model where, you don't look at the market, you first look at the product which you come from. And by the way, for your instance, most of the CEOs, since I've worked for tech companies, one thing which they, understand is the most important out of the 4 P's is product. It's not pricing, it's not promotion,
Really?
It's not anything else. I'm saying most important, right? I cannot say others are not significant, they're very significant, but the most important is your product. Yeah. That I prefer, or I would say is right under the nose of CEOs. So I think Elon Musk did it with Tesla, or a Paytm founder did it with the Paytm super app. But this is a very common trend which I see.
Interesting. So, guys, have you noted product is your key to winning your customer's heart? Always remember that research of that pain point of that customer has to go in if you are to succeed in this sector. Having said all this, all these giant companies have been seen acquiring new age brands, like HUL acquiring Minimalist, or Reliance acquiring Velvet for that being. Or, for example, even Tata Consumer Product acquired Organic India. So, how do you see acquisitions playing a key role in terms of FMCG expansion or growth?
Yeah. So I think again a very, very interesting space to play. And let me go back again into the history and talk about a few acquisitions which had happened. And different players had a different strategy. If you wanted to invest on the brands, for example, HUL at one point of time would take a call whether they had to invest in the brand, but at the same point of time, they'd go ahead and acquire something. Now, this largely stemmed from the fact that, the time is a luxury in these days, right? The time which you have. So most of the top companies for their product development process used to take 3 years. Now, if you imagine now, can you take 3 years to develop a product? You will be wiped out of business. There are players.
Industry would have changed. People's consumption pattern would have changed. The product would have maybe even evolved to a different level.
So I think, with the time as a currency, I would say missing out. I have seen that a lot of great acquisitions have been happening by a lot of players, which are giving them strengths with respect to multiple things, right? It can be their ability to win, or it can be their differentiation in the market, or it can be solving a new consumer problem altogether. For example, if you look at the acquisitions, and I think the playbook of some of the best acquisitions, I actually call it Unilever Ventures. And I've written an article also on this one, how the moats are challenged and how HUL is trying to keep up with it. So the kind of acquisition which they have had, Rusk Skincare, OneSkin, then Minimalist is a very famous one, Arata is one I can recollect. This is in the skincare segment mostly. And I think they have behemoth brands like a Lakme or a Pond's or a Fair and Lovely. What it does, it solves an additional, problem, the new product. The new product gets a rider. And the old rider, I should say, the parent gets a new problem solver.
So right? Are you saying faster GTM can be built through this?
Oh, yes. Not only, so for the smaller brands, they get exposed to a new channel. The moment you put it in the new channel, it will explode. For the larger brands, they tap a larger pie of the market. Very simple. Second example I'll give you is what's happening in the nutraceutical space. And this is one thing which I've been observing very, very strongly. And before I explore on this, I think Lever Ventures, and there are a few companies who do it. They look at a couple of companies which are very, very strong in respect to the gross margins, right? Which is generally trending from anywhere between 60 to 90. Nutraceutical is one segment, which is again a 70-75 GM category. They have invested in a couple of brands, whether it be a WhatsApp Wellness, whether it be a Man Matters. And what I've seen is that, originally they have brands, which appeal very strongly to the chemist, for example, a Horlicks or a Boost, right? So GSK's acquisition from Horlicks itself for the big one. They will top it up, right? And they will ride on the trend for sure, right? And gummies is one thing which is trending like crazy. If you want to catch up on the top trends, perhaps, we can look at, there are different tools. And trust me, they're not that expensive. You can get them in a few thousands for sure. But let me tell you what's trending in the nutraceutical space. There is Shilajit gummies, which is going global. There is CMOS gummies. There is something like a
gummies to strips. That's product innovation of a category that people were scared of consuming.
And then there are a whole lot of companies which are being built on it. For example, Be Body Wise, or Man Matters, as I said, right? So they are taking performance and they're integrating the entire space, whether it be an Ayurvedic, whether it be a clinical, but what the consumer wants is more of a convenience. So that's one of the third, I would say, another beautiful company which has been doing a lot of acquisitions. And I think acquiring is understanding that in a crunch time, what is my strength and what is my not. Right? Strategy is doing what not to do. And HUL did that very well with respect to chopping off their businesses. So they chopped off their ice cream business and they chopped off their water purifier business, right? They They left it for, I think they sold it to AO Pure, the Pure division. Third company which I was talking about was TCPL. I think I have been observing again their acquisitions. I think the speed of acquisition with respect to GTM, which they brought in, and these are definitely my original sayings inside. Once you acquire a company, you are still kept thinking in the head what to do, whether I should integrate the salesman for an offline, whether I should take it offline. I think, they haven't hesitated. They have taken decisions which are on a very, very aggressive and agile mode. So whether it be a Capital Food or an Organic India or a Soulful, and I think all beautiful companies, beautiful products, and all billion-dollar, or I should say multi-billion-dollar, consumer segments which they have stepped into. And now they are creating pillars or verticals integrated with the Tata global brand name in a much more fast-forward fashion. So yeah, that's
so you are saying quicker GTM to quicker product innovation to also looking at entering categories that may not be your current expertise area is the reason why FMCG brands have been on a acquisition spree.
Correct. Yeah. No. So see, this is one part of the reason. I mean, strategically, if there was a if I go 25 years back, there used to be in the US market, there was a video cassette rental, what was called Blockbuster, if I remember the name correctly. And there was a player called Netflix. Netflix was 100 size of Blockbuster, but they beat the hell out of them, right? Because they were focusing more on user convenience. They were thinking about the future. So I think, and Blockbuster never invested in this. So what I would say, there is a gray zone, which you see coming, but your traditional truck size makes it feel that, is going under the radar. I would say, whether through an acquisition or through an investment, you should get it covered. Because you never know that, that dot becomes the bigger pie tomorrow.
Interesting.
There are multiple categories which have happened, right? And there are multiple companies also opened. In fact, I'll give you an example of Red Bull, right, itself, that it placed with me. Red Bull, when it entered Indian markets, they're close to 90 share. Right now, in terms of volume, they are not. Right? There's a player, Sting from PepsiCo, which commands lion's share in the market. And then there is a player called Hell, which is giving very tough fight for rank 2 to Red Bull. Why? Because they, they majorly focused on the top segment. They wanted to sell at 100, 125 rupee price point. These players came and eroded or disrupted the market with 35 or 40 rupees. Right? So while they, they were very, I'm sure they would have definitely given it a much wider thought. But while they were focused on certain price point, this is the truth, that the market has changed for them. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this is what I would say is that, coming with a strategy where you have a different problem solver in terms of a category or a segment or a flanker, you should not leave it uncovered. If you cannot launch a flanker brand, acquire something.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So one side, we're hearing these acquisition stories. The other side, we're also seeing a lot of private equity investments happening in the FMCG space. From the recent investment by Temasek in Haldiram's. So what are your key takeaways from it?
Firstly, I think as a proud Indian, and I do a lot of research on how India is progressing. It's a fabulous news. I am exceptionally, you would say, pleased to hear the fact that Haldiram's became a Decacon and sold there, for more than a 10% stake for, more than $1 billion is, I would say, it's a proud moment for anyone.
Yes.
Second, I would say, is that there are different private equities. Well, I cannot name them here, but I'll try and name a few because this information is in the public. And they have a different approach to a different consumer goods industry, right? For example, there is one player, and allow me not to name the player. They focus on investing directly in companies which are upgrading from an unorganized to an organized.
Interesting.
In a couple of categories which are going through the change, for example, is jewelry. Jewelry 20 years back was 2% organized. Jewelry today is more than 1/3 organized. There's Birla, which has come in. There is Tata, who's already been there, Tanishq. Then there's expansion from Kalyan, Malabar, right? So, and this player particularly is invested in jewelry brand called Suki, and they've done with other things as well. So this is one of their traits. Then there is the other set of players who look at more as a jigsaw puzzle fitting in, right? And they look at a more wider scale for their portfolio companies rather than, looking for only very high profitable. And they have their own advantages for it. And case in point, I'll give you. So you've heard of the brand Sundrop,
Yes.
yeah, an active
Well,
popcorn. Yeah. So this is Sundrop was acquired from ITC Agrotech by the US giant Conagra, and and they led the brand in India for a last set of time till a private equity player by the name of Samara Capital, put in their money into it. And I think their first big move was the fact that they bought majority stake from Delmont. Now, Delmont is a Singapore-based player, and the majority was held by Bharti Airtel at that point of time. Now, if you look at both the businesses, Agrotech makes Sundrop, and Delmont makes your ketchups, your condiments, and a lot of stuff. Delmont is majorly a QSR-based business. It sells majorly in Horeca, which is your hotel, restaurant, and catering points, right? Which is a bulk of the sale. The bulk of the sale of the other player, which is Agrotech, is actually GT, which is almost 75% GT, right? So once you marry this, automatically your growth should be sorted for 5 years. That's one experiment, or my understanding, which I could read from it. So that's one of the good ones. Second, I'm still very curious, and I'm trying to do a lot of research on what is the thought process behind other private equity players before plugging in. It's an ongoing research, so wait for that.
In our next podcast, you heard it here. With your personal view of the personal care industry, it has been evolving at a very different pace. With the latest trends being seen in us using products like niacinamide or hyaluronic acid also. How do you see this?
I think
shaping up in this industry.
Yeah. Firstly, I think I got a lot of lessons from Nivea days, and where I worked for for quite some time. And I think essentially as a company, they were very focused on product. They were very focused on consumer and care. This is where we realized that the personal care industry is just the tip of the iceberg which India is witnessing right now. Yeah, if I cut to these days right now, I think one player is doing it phenomenally well. That is Mamaearth, right? But you gave me some chemicals name. If you can repeat it.
So niacinamide.
Niacinamide, yeah. And let me, एक मैं reel देख रहा था कुछ दिनों पहले. Let me drop this joke and I sent it on to my friends. There's a girl, who wants to take a chemistry lesson, who's going for a chemistry paper rather, and she tops it because just she knows the names like hyaluronic acid, salicylic acid. So I think these things, and I've met a lot of consumers, who are extremely particular about their skincare. I mean, I know of consumers who put in 24, 25 skincare products at a very young age. So that's something which is very, very intriguing that Indian scene is exploring. I think Mamaearth is doing things very, very well over here. And let me just, double down on what the stuff which they have done. I think firstly, a lot of these companies started with a micro niche, right? So Mamaearth's micro niche was onion. M-caffeine was based on something like coffee and so forth. But Mamaearth kept it very, a positioning which is very true to the soul, heart, something which is very affable and friendly to the consumer, not only for them, because initially their range was also into kids product. So they built a niche around onion. Then they shifted to stuff like Upton. They have done one thing very beautifully right now, which I see they have done it with rice water. So if Korean skincare is trending right now, and I am not able to see any other player. When you go to Mamaearth's website, it's not just the rice water face wash which they have. They have a toner. Apart from the toner, they've also got
moisturizer.
They have got a moisturizer. Yeah, so they're expanding
hair products.
Yeah. And this is not just one of the niche. I think rosemary is one big niche. I think a few players are also working on a niche of chia seeds, right? So you imagine a range of products around chia seeds, right? In foods, there are a lot of niches which you look at which are being pulled up. For example, companies like Too Good or players in the jaggery space who are trying to, take on the sugar space. Yeah. So I think it's very, very interesting lessons in the making here again.
Interesting. So your stint with Marico. Now Marico has changed its strategy in terms of doubling down into D2C space with its even recent acquisition with Beardo.
Yeah.
Right. So again, how do you see this shaping up the strategy when it comes to such legacy brands?
So male grooming is a category, I think in India, if you look at like a almost 3-4 years back, it used to be less than 1,000 crore category, majorly centered around metros. Now that thing phenomenon is changing certainly, right? And with the advent of beard in India, that's kind of really exploding. So what I read somewhere is while they've hired Beardo, they have let it function like a startup, right? So that they continue to explode rock and roll in the D2C space, and the kind of activations which they have done have been really phenomenal. So if you know, they took in somebody like Allu Arjun from Pushpa 3, right? And it's a big thing in itself. So, but I would say the big unlock which is coming, and I'd actually give to the founders of Reni, who had done some really great work. First they launched a company called Beardo, then they launched a company called Villain, where they had taken off Yash, rocking star Yash, and now they're doing some magic with Reni. Reni's already a 2,000 crore, close to a 2,000 crore valuated company right now. So I think the real unlock problem solving, if I marry it with a giant like Marcom, I think they're playing their cards very, very well. Yeah. Second, if you also look at the other acquisitions like True Roots, right? They have acquired a nutraceutical brand called Plix.
Exactly.
I'm sure a lot of you would have used while initially they would have a teething issue or something, but I think as a brand promise appealing to Gen Z, it was a phenomenal business which was built in.
With these disruptions coming into play, what trends do you see will lead the consumer demand and loyalty in the future to come in FMCG sector?
So I think, crisping it down, first and foremost, your product has to be the key, a problem solver. Second, you have to be very honest, truthful to the consumer. If it's a foods product, think of the product if you can give to your kids. If you cannot, take a pause. Right? So gone are the days where you could sell a product and still continuing it. And if you're still in the myth that you are still selling it at 10 rupee pack to a rural sub India which is not able to afford, I think that dynamic is going to change very, very strongly. Right? We are already seeing it in the segments like protein supplements, right? There are a plethora of brands coming in. It's a 16,000 crore category, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. And also I want to mention one YouTube. So I've been YouTubing since last year of time, and that's my source of learning and keeping up with young professionals like you. There is a trustified kind of a pattern which actually has put in ordered stuff from online, and they're doing a fabulous job with respect to testing and verifying the set of a product, right? And there's also, when I buy the whole truth pack, it says it's trustified, right? So they have their logo. So they're not only acting as a certification, they're acting as a very transparent, cost-free medium to the people, right? So you can make a very reasonable choice, yeah?
So marketing has evolved to making it more transparent and more...
I will say should evolve, because Trustified is a company which also received a legal notice from a large set of company. You should watch the YouTube channel. I cannot speak more on that topic for sure.
For later.
But yeah, I think it's a revolution in the making.
Great. As much as we are loving these insights, however, this brings us to the last round of our podcast, which is the rapid fire round.
Sure.
So don't think, just say what comes to your mind.
I will, for sure.
One marketing buzzword you would love to retire immediately.
Yeah, I would say influencer marketing needs to be kicked off immediately.
Super. A personal productivity hack you swear by.
Gym.
A single best piece of professional advice you would give your younger self.
I would learn digital marketing far, far ahead. Second, innovation and thinking about a larger future, while you really can't predict it. If you start thinking of it, you'll be able to relate and walk along nicely.
If you had to pivot to a completely different industry, which would it be?
I still haven't got a blush of consumer electronics for that matter, though during my PTM stint that was involved in one way or the other, but more on the fintech side. Second, I would also say a lot of private labels are peeping up. Yeah, so that's something which I would love to explore.
I can imagine you taking these companies to a 10x, the way you are aggressive about targets and work functions.
I hope so. That's the mantra.
An underrated leadership trait you believe is essential for long-term success?
I call it bottoms up. I see a lot of people, so मैंने देखा क्या है, एक level of experience के बाद लोगों में अकड़ आ जाती है. You become snob, where I know everything. I will dictate the terms. I will not learn from the person. I'll go by the hierarchy. Now, organizations are changing. There's not a sequential communication. There's a matrix communication. And I have got in a lot of stuff from these young users, who have, it can be some great skills of Canva. And trust me, it's a skill which can take you to whole new business levels altogether. To something like understanding more on the consumer psyche, to even understanding something on agility or an AI. So I think, I've called this bottoms up in all the organizations I've worked in. A beer wala bottoms up nahi hai. It's more a reverse mentoring kind of a thing, which I firmly believe in if you need to, reinvent in today's
Super.
scenario.
So, listeners, now that's called decoding the FMCG sector. I am sure you now have a ready playbook for certain growth hacks in the FMCG sector. If you love this conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, Satyam, for sharing such beautiful insights with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And I have kept my geopolitical insights with me. We've already talked India. So yeah, hopefully some other day or maybe behind the bars now.
Part 2 coming soon.
Yeah.
Now that's called decoding the FMCG space. This podcast is your playbook to growth hacks and disruption in this industry. If you are craving for more, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Until then, keep your chai hot and your brands bold. Thanks for tuning in today.